Basketball legend. Michael Jordan has always been known for his ruthless, competitive spirit. The man who led the Chicago Bulls to 6 NBA championships and built a billion-dollar business empire has never accepted second place. But on October 23, 2024, Jordan made a decision that shocked the business world and left hundreds of loyal employees devastated. Without warning, without explanation, he fired his entire staff with a single text message sent minutes before midnight. Why would the greatest basketball player of all time, a man known for his strategic thinking and leadership, take such a drastic action? Initial theories ranged from financial troubles to a potential sale of his businesses. But, as this story will reveal, the real reason behind Jordan's midnight decision was far more personal, far more complex, and far more shocking than anyone could have imagined. It began with a health diagnosis, led to a betrayal by his oldest friend, and eventually uncovered a sophisticated criminal scheme targeting vulnerable patients. But it started with that text message, arriving on hundreds of phones simultaneously at 11:42 p.m. on a night that would change many lives forever. Tanya Williams was about to fall asleep when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The bright screen lit up her dark bedroom. It was 11:42 p.m. "Who's texting this late?" she mumbled, reaching for the phone. The message was from her boss, Michael Jordan. In 8 years as his personal assistant, she had gotten late-night texts before. Usually, they were about last-minute travel plans or early morning meetings. But this message made her sit straight up in bed. "Your services are no longer needed. Clear your desk by morning." Tanya read it 3 times. This had to be a mistake. Her hands shook as she typed back, "Mr. Jordan, is everything okay? Did you mean to send this to me?" 3 minutes passed. No answer. She tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. "This can't be happening," she whispered. Tanya had given everything to this job. She organized Michael Jordan's entire life, from business meetings to family. Birthdays. She kept his secrets. She answered his calls at 3 a.m. Just yesterday, he had thanked her for finding his daughter's lost bracelet. Her phone buzzed again. Maybe it was all a mix-up, but the new message wasn't from Jordan. It was from Marcus Chen in the marketing department. "Did you get fired too?" "Just got a text from MJ." Tanya's stomach dropped. She called Marcus right away. "I can't believe this," Marcus said when he answered. "I got a text saying to clear my desk by morning. My wife is freaking out. We just bought a house." "I got the same message," Tanya said, word for word. "What's going on? The company's making record profits. The new shoe line is selling out everywhere." While they were talking, Tanya's phone kept lighting up with messages. Ben from equipment, Sophia from branding, Darnell from finance. All with the same story. All fired by text message. "It's not just you and me," she told Marcus. "It's everyone." By midnight, Twitter was exploding with the news. Former employees were posting screenshots of the identical message. Some were angry, some were confused. Everyone wanted answers. Basketball Fan 44. Did Michael Jordan really just fire his entire staff overnight? MJ firing hoops dreams. My cousin works for Jordan Brand and just got fired by text at 11:45 p.m. Cold-blooded. Dirty Fay Torm. MJ firing sports news. Breaking. Reports coming in that basketball legend Michael Jordan has terminated all employees across his business empire. No statement yet from Jordan's representatives. Tanya tried to make sense of it. Had there been signs? Last week, Jordan had canceled 3 meetings at the last minute. He'd seemed distracted during their morning briefing on Monday. And yesterday, She'd noticed unfamiliar men in suits meeting with him behind closed doors. But firing everyone at once? It made no sense. She called Sandra Miller, Jordan's personal lawyer. Sandra always knew what was happening. But for the first time in years, Sandra didn't pick up Tanya's call. Tanya's living room TV showed breaking news about the mass firing. A reporter stood outside the Charlotte headquarters of Jordan's business empire. In a shocking move, basketball. Legend and business mogul Michael Jordan has reportedly terminated the employment of his entire staff across all business ventures. The firings, which happened by text message just before midnight Eastern Time, have affected an estimated 380 employees. There has been no statement from Jordan or his representatives about the reason for this unprecedented action. Tanya's phone rang. It was Ben Morris, the equipment manager who had worked with Jordan since his Chicago Bulls days. "Tanya, what's happening?" Ben's voice cracked. He was in his 60s now. "I've been with Michael for almost 30 years. Through championships, retirement, everything. And now I'm fired by text? Did I do something wrong?" "I don't know, Ben," Tanya said, her own eyes filling with tears. "I really don't know." Outside Jordan's mansion in Jupiter, Florida, security lights flashed as cars pulled up to the gate. Even from the news helicopter footage, Tanya recognized Victor Ramirez's black SUV. Victor headed Jordan's security team. Behind him was another car Tanya knew well. It belonged to James Wilson, Jordan's childhood friend from North Carolina. Watching the cars enter the property, Tanya realized something odd. Victor and Jimmy hadn't posted about being fired. Neither had Sandra Miller, the lawyer who didn't answer her call. Some people were still in Jordan's inner circle. But why them and not others? Tanya's phone buzzed with another message. Her heart jumped, hoping it was Jordan saying it was all a mistake. Instead, it was a news alert. Michael Jordan's spokesperson has confirmed the mass termination, stating only that Mr. Jordan is restructuring his business interests effective immediately. No further details were provided. Tanya looked around her apartment at the photos. On her wall, pictures of her with Michael Jordan at charity events, championship celebrations, store openings. 8 years of her life dedicated to a man who had just fired her by text message. She pulled out a cardboard box from her closet and started packing her desk items. Whatever was happening, she would face it with dignity tomorrow. But as she placed her company laptop in the box, one question kept spinning in her mind. What could make Michael Jordan, the most competitive man in sports, suddenly cut ties with everyone who helped build his empire? No one understood this question better than Ben Morris. As he drove to the office to clear out his desk the next morning, memories flooded back from his 30 years with Michael Jordan. Ben had first met Jordan in 1984, back when Michael was just a skinny rookie with the Chicago Bulls. Ben was a young equipment manager then, making sure the players had everything they needed. Most rookies barely noticed him. But Michael was different. "Hey, what's your name?" Michael had asked on his first day. "Ben Morris, sir." "Don't call me sir." "I'm Michael," he'd said with that famous smile. "Make sure my shoes are always ready, Ben. The shoes matter more than people think." And Ben had never let him down. Through 6 NBA championships, 5 MVP awards, and 14 All-Star appearances, Ben made sure everything was perfect for Michael Jordan. Traffic slowed as Ben approached the Charlotte offices. News vans blocked the entrance. Reporters swarmed, former employees carrying boxes to their cars. Ben took a deep breath and parked in his usual spot, maybe for the last time. Inside, the building felt strange. Security guards who normally smiled now watched silently as employees cleaned out their desks. Ben walked to his small office in the back. 30 years of memories covered his walls. Photos, newspaper clippings, and memorabilia from Jordan's amazing career. Ben carefully took down a framed photo from the 1997 NBA Finals, the famous flu game. In the picture, an exhausted Michael Jordan leaned on Scottie Pippen after scoring 38 points while battling severe illness. The Utah Jazz crowd looked stunned in the background. Ben remembered that night like it was yesterday. Michael had been so sick he could barely stand up in the locker room before the game. "I don't think you should play tonight," Ben had told him. Concerned, Michael had looked up at him with fiery eyes. "We're not losing. Get my shoes ready." That was the Michael Jordan that Ben knew. A man who never quit, never took the easy way out, and never gave up on people who were loyal to him. So why this? Why fire everyone without warning? It made no sense. "Hey, Ben." Ben turned to see Darnell Washington, the chief financial officer, standing in his doorway. "Morning, Darnell. You packing up too?" Darnell nodded, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "I keep thinking I'll wake up and this will all be a bad dream." 2 days ago, I presented our quarterly reports to Michael. Profits are up 18%. He seemed pleased. Then, this happens. "Any theories?" Ben asked as he wrapped the flu game photo in bubble wrap. "People are saying all kinds of things. Some think he's selling everything. Others think he's in financial trouble, but that's impossible. The Jordan brand alone makes over $5 billion a year." Ben shook his head. Money was never what drove Michael. It was always about being the best, proving people wrong. That was the Michael Jordan that Ben had watched grow from a North Carolina kid to a global icon. Born in Brooklyn but raised in Wilmington, North Carolina, Michael had famously been cut from his high school varsity team as a sophomore. That rejection fueled him. He practiced harder than anyone, determined to prove his coach wrong. By senior year, he was a high school All-American. Ben pulled another photo from his wall. Jordan hitting the championship-winning shot against Georgetown in the 1982 NCAA Finals as a freshman at the University of North Carolina. "Did I ever tell you I was at this game?" Ben asked Darnell. "I was working as an assistant equipment manager for North Carolina." The look on Michael's face after he hit this shot, that's when I knew he was different. Not just happy, but like he always knew it would happen. Darnell stared at the picture. "Hard to believe the same man just fired us all by text message." Ben carefully placed the photo in his box. Next came a ticket stub from Michael's first game back from retirement in 1995, when he announced his return with the simple message, "I'm back." Through the window, Ben could see more employees arriving to clean out their desks. Some were crying. Others looked angry. These people had helped build Jordan's business empire after his playing days. The Jordan brand partnership with Nike, his ownership of the Charlotte Hornets, which he sold in 2023 for nearly $3 billion, his restaurants, car dealerships, and so much more. "You know what bothers me most?" Ben said quietly. "It's not losing the job. I'm old enough to retire anyway. It's not knowing why. After all these years, I thought I knew the real Michael Jordan." "Maybe none of us did," Darnell replied. Ben's phone buzzed with a news alert. He showed the screen to Darnell. Jordan's mass firing. Sources claim basketball legend Michael Jordan terminated all employees after discovering major breach of trust. Details still emerging. Breach of trust? Darnell frowned. "What does that mean?" Before Ben could answer, a security guard appeared at his door. "Mr. Morris? There's someone asking for you in the lobby. Says it's important." Ben followed the guard, curious. In the lobby stood a young woman with a press badge. "Mr. Morris? I'm Zoe Rivera from Sports Illustrated. I'm hoping you might help me understand what's happening here. Given your history with Michael Jordan—" "No comment," Ben said automatically. Despite everything, his loyalty to Michael ran deep. "Please, Mr. Morris. People deserve answers. You were there from the beginning. If anyone knows the real Michael Jordan—" "That's just it," Ben interrupted. "I thought I did. Now I'm not so sure." As Ben walked back to his office, a memory surfaced from Jordan's final championship run in 1998. Before Game 6 against the Utah Jazz, Michael had pulled Ben aside. "Whatever happens tonight, remember this," Jordan had told him. "Sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to win what matters most." At the time, Ben thought Michael was talking about the game. Now, he wondered if there was a deeper meaning he had missed. Ben placed the last photo in his box, Michael's iconic shot over Brian Russell to win the 1998 Finals, his final shot as a Chicago Bull. The perfect ending to a perfect career. Or, so it had seemed. What could make Michael Jordan, the most competitive man in sports, suddenly cut ties with everyone who helped build his empire? Ben Morris still didn't know the answer. But as he carried his box of memories out to his car, he couldn't shake the feeling that, like every game Michael Jordan had ever played, this move was strategic. And Michael Jordan never made a move without knowing exactly how it would end. Sophia Patel knew this better than most. As the marketing director for the Jordan brand, she had spent 5 years turning Michael's fame into a business empire worth billions. Now, as she packed up her office on the 10th floor, she wondered what endgame Michael was playing toward. Unlike Ben Morris, Sophia never knew Michael Jordan, the basketball player, at least not firsthand. She was only 8 years old when Jordan made his final shot for the Chicago Bulls in 1998. She knew him as a boss, a businessman, and the face behind the empire she helped build. "Crazy day, huh?" said a voice from her doorway. Sophia looked up to see Marcus Chen leaning against the Dr. frame, a cardboard box tucked under his arm. "That's one way to put it," she replied, carefully placing her awards in bubble wrap. Last year, her campaign for the Jordan 37 sneakers had won Best Sports Marketing at the National Advertising Awards. Michael had personally congratulated her at the ceremony. "I still don't get it," Marcus said, entering her office. "The numbers have never been better." Sophia nodded. The Jordan brand was making over $5 billion yearly for Nike, with Michael receiving an estimated $150 million of that annually. That was just one piece of his business empire. "Did you know," Sophia said, "when Michael first signed with Nike in 1984, he made $500,000 a year? His agent, David Falk, convinced him to choose Nike over Adidas. At the time, Nike was just a running shoe company trying to break into basketball." "Good call by his agent," Marcus said. "The best business decision in sports history. Now the Jordan brand makes more money than most entire sports leagues." Sophia stared at a poster on her wall. The iconic Jumpman logo, showing Jordan's silhouette soaring through the air. She remembered explaining to a new employee last month why the brand was so valuable. "It's not just about sneakers," she had said. "It's about what Michael Jordan represents. Excellence, determination, never settling. People who never saw him play still want to be like Mike." Now she carefully took the poster down and rolled it up. On her desk sat a framed photo of her with Michael at the opening of the newest Jordan store in Shanghai last year. The line of customers had wrapped around the block for 3 days. "You know what's strange?" Sophia said to Marcus. "Half our customers today were born after Jordan retired. They never saw him play a single game, but they'll spend $200 on his shoes because of what his name means." After retiring from basketball for good in 2003, Jordan had transformed himself from athlete to businessman. Beyond the Jordan brand with Nike, he had owned the Charlotte Hornets NBA team until selling it in 2023 for $3 billion. He had car dealerships, restaurants, and endorsement deals with companies like Hanes, Gatorade, and Upper Deck. "I pitched him an idea last month," Sophia said, placing the Shanghai photo in her box. "A special edition Jordan shoe designed by kids from Chicago's South Side. All profits would go to refurbishing basketball courts in the city." He loved it. "We were supposed to launch next season." "Maybe that still happens," Marcus said. "Maybe. This is just—" He trailed off, unable to finish the thought. There was no logical explanation for firing an entire company overnight. Through the glass walls of her office, Sophia could see other employees packing up. The marketing department had 30 people last week. Now, it was empty desks and cardboard. Boxes, her phone buzzed. Another news alert. Jordan's former teammates respond to mass firing. Totally out of character, says Scottie Pippen. She clicked on the article. Former Bulls teammate Scottie Pippen had told reporters, "This doesn't sound like the Michael I know. He values loyalty above everything." That was the puzzle. Michael Jordan had built his post-basketball career on being reliable, dependable, and loyal to his brand. This sudden move threatened everything he had built. "You remember the speech he gave at the Christmas party?" Marcus asked. "About how we were all part of his legacy beyond basketball?" Sophia nodded. It had been just 5 months ago. Jordan had stood on a stage at the company's celebration and told everyone they were helping write the next chapter of his story. "Your work ensures that 50 years from now, people won't just remember my dunks or my championships," he had said. "They'll remember what we built together." The words rang hollow now. Sophia's desk phone rang, startling them both. Few people use the office lines anymore. "Marketing, this is Sophia," she answered automatically. "Ms. Patel, this is security. There's someone in the lobby asking for you. Says her name is Zoe Rivera from Sports Illustrated." "Tell her no comment," Sophia replied quickly. "That's what everyone's saying," Marcus noted after she hung up. "But somebody's going to talk eventually." Sophia's computer pinged with an email notification. It was from HR, a formal termination letter stating that all company property must be returned by 5 p.m. and that 2 weeks' severance would be provided. 2 weeks, Marcus said, reading over her shoulder. "After everything we've done?" Sophia didn't respond. She was looking at something else on her screen. Before the termination email, she had received another message, this one from an address she didn't recognize. The subject line read, "What Jordan isn't telling you." She clicked it open. Inside was a single line of text. "Check the financial reports from last quarter. Follow the money. Not everything is as it seems." The email was unsigned. "What's that?" Marcus asked. Sophia quickly closed the message. "Probably just spam," she said. But her mind was racing. As the marketing director, she had access to basic financial reports, but not the detailed accounting. What was in those reports that someone wanted her to see? She glanced again at the Jumpman logo poster she had just rolled up, the silhouette of Michael Jordan, suspended in midair, defying gravity. Sophia had built her career explaining to the world who Michael Jordan was as a brand. Now she wondered if she had ever known the real man at all. The morning sun cast long shadows across the parking lot of Jordan's headquarters in Charlotte as Darnell Washington pulled in. As chief financial officer, he normally arrived before anyone else. Today, he was greeted by news vans, reporters with microphones, and former employees carrying boxes to their cars. Darnell had barely slept. The text message firing still felt unreal, like a bad dream he couldn't wake up from. Just 2 days ago, He had presented quarterly financial reports to Michael Jordan himself. Everything looked positive. Profits up, expenses down, new markets opening in Asia and Europe. Michael had nodded approval throughout the meeting. "Excuse me? Are you an employee? Can we get a statement?" A reporter rushed toward Darnell as he stepped out of his car. "No comment," Darnell said firmly, hurrying toward the entrance. Inside, the building felt like a ghost town. Security guards stood at their posts, but the usual morning buzz was gone. No phones ringing, no employees chatting about weekend plans, just the sound of packing tape and cardboard boxes being folded. Darnell's office was on the top floor, next to Michael's. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. When the doors opened, he was surprised to see Jordan's secretary, Mrs. Miller, at her desk. She was an older woman who had worked for Michael since his Chicago days. "Good morning, Mr. Washington," she said calmly, as if it were any normal day. "Mrs. Miller, you're still here?" Darnell couldn't hide his surprise. She nodded. "Some of us were asked to stay? Who else?" "Mr. Ramirez in security, Mr. Wilson, a few others." Her expression gave nothing away. "Mr. Jordan isn't in today, if you're looking for him." Of course he wasn't. Michael Jordan had just fired hundreds of people. By text message. He wouldn't show his face today. Darnell continued to his office and began packing his things. Through his window, he could see more news vans arriving. This story was getting bigger by the hour. His phone rang. His personal cell, not his work. Phone. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. "Hello? Mr. Washington? This is Zoe Rivera from Sports Illustrated. I'm hoping you might help me understand what's happening with Mr. Jordan's business." Darnell almost hung up, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the lack of sleep. Maybe it was the shock still working through his system. Or maybe it was the growing feeling that something wasn't right about this whole situation. "I don't know what's happening, Ms. Rivera. None of us do. You're the CFO, correct? There must have been signs of trouble. Is Jordan in financial difficulty? Is he selling his businesses?" "Absolutely not," Darnell said firmly. "Our financial position is stronger than ever. The Jordan brand alone makes billions. Our partnerships are thriving. There was no financial reason for this." As soon as the words left his mouth, Darnell regretted them. He shouldn't be talking to the press, but the reporter had touched a nerve. As CFO, he took pride in the company's financial health. "Then what explanation could there be for firing everyone overnight?" Zoe pressed. "I have to go," Darnell said, ending the call. He sat at his desk, thinking. In his 15 years working for Michael Jordan, he had come to know the businessman. Careful, strategic, always thinking 3 moves ahead. This chaotic mass firing didn't fit the pattern. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. It was Victor Ramirez, head of security, a former FBI agent who had protected Jordan for over a decade. "Morning, Darnell. Sorry about all this." Victor's face was a mask of professional calm. "You knew about this, didn't you?" Darnell couldn't keep the accusation from his voice. Victor didn't deny it. "I'm here to escort you to the server room. We need your passwords and access codes before you leave. Are you?" Standard procedure for departing executives, but there was usually more notice. Darnell followed Victor to the elevator. "Can you at least tell me what's going on?" Darnell asked as they rode down to the basement. "I presented our financials to Michael 2 days ago. Everything was fine." "Was it?" Victor asked quietly. The question hung in the air. The elevator doors opened to the basement level, where the company's servers were kept. The room was cold and hummed with machinery. "What does that mean?" Darnell asked as they entered the server room. "It means sometimes things look fine on the surface, but Underneath. Victor trailed off. I need your master password. Darnell hesitated, then typed his password into the main terminal. Victor watched carefully. Now your encryption keys for the financial database. Again, Darnell complied. Something in Victor's tone made him nervous. Victor, I've done nothing wrong. I've managed Michael's finances honestly for 15 years. Nobody's saying you did anything wrong, Victor replied, but his eyes told a different story. As they left the server room, Darnell noticed something strange. Two men in suits he didn't recognize were waiting in the hallway. They weren't company, employees or regular security. Who are they? Darnell whispered. Consultants, Victor said simply. Back in his office, Darnell tried to log into his computer one last time, but his credentials had already been revoked. They hadn't even waited for him to leave the building. Through his window, he saw more former employees in the parking lot. Some were hugging. Others were talking to reporters. A few were just sitting in their cars, probably trying to process what had happened. His desk phone rang. Almost everyone was gone, but the phones still worked. Hello? Mr. Washington. There's someone in the lobby for you. Says her name is Sophia Patel. Darnell was surprised. The marketing director didn't usually seek him out. Send her up. A few minutes later, Sophia knocked on his open door. She looked like she hadn't slept either. Can I talk to you? She asked, glancing nervously down the hall. Sure, come in. Sanchinath closed the door behind her and spoke in a low voice. Did you get a strange email this morning? About checking the financial reports? Darnell stiffened. No. What did it say? It said to check last quarter's financial reports, to follow the money, that things aren't what they seem. Who sent it? I don't know. The address was just numbers. Darnell, what's in those reports? Nothing. Unusual, he said automatically, but a nagging doubt crept into his mind. He had prepared those reports himself, but Michael's private business interests were handled by a separate accounting firm. Darnell only saw the summaries. Are you sure? Sophia asked. Because firing an entire company overnight isn't normal behavior, even for someone as intense as Michael Jordan. Before Darnell could answer, his cell phone buzzed with a news alert. Sources claim Jordan's mass firing linked to major security breach. Sensitive personal and financial information allegedly compromised. He showed the screen to Sophia. A security breach? She whispered. What information? Darnell shook his head. I don't know. But if someone is accessing private financial records, the implications hung in the air. If someone inside the company was stealing information, it might explain the sudden, drastic action. But firing everyone? That still seemed extreme. I should go, Sophia said, standing. They want us out by noon. But Darnell, if you find out anything… Likewise, he nodded. After she left, Darnell looked once more at the headquarters he had helped build. Something wasn't adding up, and as a financial man, that bothered him deeply. In the parking lot, as he placed the last box in his trunk, he noticed a black SUV parked nearby. Through the tinted windows, he could make out the silhouette of James, Jimmy Wilson, Jordan's childhood friend from North Carolina. Jimmy had been part of Jordan's inner circle since before the fame. He had no official title in the company, but was always around. And now, it seemed, he was one of the few still in Michael Jordan's trust. What did Jimmy know that the rest of them didn't? Inside Jordan's mansion in Jupiter, Florida, James Jimmy Wilson sat across from Michael Jordan. The sprawling living room overlooked a private golf course, but neither man was admiring the view. The television was muted, showing news coverage of the mass firing. Michael's face was stone-like, unreadable. They're calling it "The Midnight Massacre" on Twitter, Jimmy said, scrolling through his phone. "Not your best PR moment, Mike." Michael didn't respond. He just stared at the screen, where former employees were being interviewed outside the Charlotte headquarters. Sandra Miller, Jordan's personal lawyer for 20 years, entered the room with a stack of papers. "The severance packages are ready. 2 weeks' pay for most employees, 4 weeks for department heads." "Double it," Michael said, his first words all morning. Sandra raised an eyebrow but made a note. "That's going to cost—" "I don't care what it costs," Michael cut her off. "Just do it." Victor Ramirez, head of security, was the last to join them. His face showed the strain of a sleepless night. "The system access has been locked down. Darnell, Washington just turned in his passwords. IT is doing a complete security sweep." Michael nodded. These 3 people, Jimmy, Sandra, and Victor, were the only ones he hadn't fired, the only ones he still trusted. Jimmy had known Michael since. They were kids shooting hoops on a cracked court in Wilmington, North Carolina. Before the championships, before the fame, before the billions, they had been just 2 skinny boys with basketball dreams. "Remember that night in high school when Coach Smith came to watch you play?" Jimmy asked suddenly. Michael looked up, surprised by the change in topic. "You had the flu. 102-degree fever. Your mom wanted you to stay home, but you said, 'Champions don't take sick days.'" Michael finished with a hint of a smile. That was the Michael Jordan that Jimmy knew. Relentless, uncompromising. A man who took the famous flu game in the 1997 NBA Finals not as an exceptional moment, but as the expected standard. "The press is going to keep digging," Sandra warned. "We need a statement." "Not yet," Michael said firmly. Victor's phone buzzed. He checked the message and frowned. The AGE security team found another breach in the server logs. "Someone accessed your private medical files 3 weeks ago." Michael's jaw tightened. "Can they trace it?" "They're trying, but whoever did it was careful. They used credentials from 5 different employees to cover their tracks." Jimmy watched, his childhood friend, carefully. He had seen Michael Jordan face down the toughest defenders in NBA history without blinking. He had seen him sink game-winning shots with championships on the line. But he had never seen him look as worried as he did now. "Mike, maybe it's time to tell them the truth," Jimmy suggested gently. "Not until we know who's behind this," Michael replied. Sandra's phone rang. She stepped out to take the call, leaving the 3 men in tense silence. Victor had been with Michael since his second retirement in 1999. A former FBI agent, he had initially been hired as a bodyguard, but quickly became one of Jordan's most trusted advisors. He was the one who had first noticed the security breaches, the unusual access patterns, the information that seemed to be leaking from inside Jordan's organization. "I've got 2 more security specialists flying in this afternoon," Victor said. "Former NSA. If there's a trail, they'll find it." Michael nodded. "And the clinic? Extra security in place. Dr. Reynolds has been briefed. No visitors without direct approval from me." Jimmy looked between them. The clinic again. Michael had been making secret trips to a medical facility in Arizona for the past month. Something was happening that even Jimmy didn't fully understand. Sandra returned, her expression grave. "That was Dr. Reynolds. Your test results are back. He wants to discuss them today." Michael's face revealed nothing, but Jimmy saw his friend's hands tighten slightly on the armrests of his chair. "Schedule it," Michael said, "and make sure nobody knows where I'm going." "What about the press?" Sandra asked. "They're camping outside all your properties. The longer we wait to make a statement—" "Let them wait," Michael cut her off. "We do this my way." That was the Michael Jordan the world knew. The competitor who once said, I play to win, whether during practice or a real game. Jimmy had been there for all of it. Michael's father's tragic murder in 1993, his first retirement to play baseball, his comeback and second three-peat with the Bulls, his brief comeback with the Washington Wizards. Through all the triumphs and challenges, Jimmy had remained a constant presence, not as an employee, but as a friend. Now, watching Michael's face as he stared at the muted television, Jimmy felt a chill. Something was very wrong, beyond the security breaches and medical appointments. The door opened, and Mrs. Miller, Michael's longtime secretary, entered with a tray of coffee. "Sir, that reporter is back. Zoe Rivera from Sports Illustrated. She's interviewing former employees and asking about your trips to Arizona." Michael's eyes narrowed. How does she know about Arizona? Nobody answered. Somebody was talking. Somebody knew things they shouldn't know. "We find the leak," Michael said, his voice cold with determination. "We find who's behind this. Then we fix it all." Jimmy nodded, but a nagging worry grew inside him. Michael Jordan had always been a man with a plan, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. But this time, Jimmy wasn't sure even Michael knew how this game would end. By noon the next day, the story had exploded across every sports network, news channel, and social media platform. MJ firing was trending worldwide. Everyone had an opinion about Michael Jordan's midnight decision. In a Chicago sports bar, the TVs that normally showed basketball games were all tuned to the news. Former employees gave interviews. Business experts speculated about Jordan's motives. Sports commentators debated what this meant for his legacy. "This just doesn't match the Michael Jordan I know," said Phil Jackson, Jordan's former coach with the Chicago Bulls, in a live interview on ESPN. "Michael has always valued loyalty and trust above everything else. There must be more to this story than we're hearing." Scottie Pippen, Jordan's longtime teammate, also expressed surprise. "In all the years I played with Michael, through championships and challenges, I never saw him make a decision without careful thought. Whatever's happening, I trust he has his reasons. Not everyone was so understanding. Social media was filled with criticism." Basketball fan 23. "Used to respect MJ, but who fires hundreds of people by text message? No class." MJ firing a sneaker. Head 44, selling all my Jordans tomorrow. Can't support someone who treats employees like garbage. Boycott Jordan. Sports analyst, Jordan. The player was brilliant. Jordan the businessman just killed his brand in one night. MJ firing in New York. LeBron James was asked about the situation after a practice session. "Look, I don't know what's happening with MJ's business," LeBron said carefully. "But I know he's always been calculated in everything he does. There's probably more to this story than we know. I'm not going to judge without all the facts." Back in Charlotte, the local news showed former employees gathering at a nearby restaurant, sharing stories and offering support to each other. "I gave 12 years to that company," said a tearful marketing coordinator to a reporter. "Never once called in sick. Missed my kids' birthday parties to finish projects. And this is how it ends? A text message at midnight?" At a sports radio station in Chicago, the hosts were taking calls from listeners. "I'm sorry, but this is not the Michael Jordan I idolized growing up," said one caller. "The Michael Jordan who inspired millions wouldn't treat people this way." "How do you know?" the host challenged. "We saw him on the court. We saw the commercials. We don't know the real Michael Jordan." That was the question on everyone's mind. Who was the real Michael Jordan? The fierce competitor who won 6 NBA championships? The businessman who built a billion-dollar brand? The philanthropist who donated millions to charity? or someone else entirely. In Phoenix, Arizona, where temperatures still reached 85 degrees, in late October, Zoe Rivera sat in a rental car across the street from the Longevity Medical Institute. According to her sources, Michael Jordan had visited this exclusive clinic at least 5 times in the past month. Zoe was 32, a rising star at Sports Illustrated, known for digging deeper than most sports reporters. This story felt different from her usual features on up-and-coming athletes or analyses of championship teams. Something about the mass firing didn't add up, and Zoe was determined to find the truth. Her phone rang. Her editor in New York. "Please tell me you've got something," he said when she answered. "Everyone's covering this story, but nobody has anything solid. Just speculation and reaction." "I'm working on it," Zoe replied, eyes still on the clinic entrance. "Did you get access to those flight records I asked for?" "Just came through. Jordan's private jet made 6 trips to Phoenix in the past month. Last one was 3 days ago. Always late-night arrivals, early morning departures. And the passenger lists? Just Jordan and his security chief on most flights. Last 2 trips included his friend James Wilson and lawyer Sandra Miller." Zoe made a note. "What about the photos I sent of the men in suits at Jordan headquarters yesterday?" "Nothing yet. They're not known security contractors. Might be private consultants. Still checking." As they spoke, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up to the clinic. Victor Ramirez stepped out first, scanning the area before opening the rear door. Michael Jordan emerged, wearing a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses despite the cloudy day. "I've got to go," Zoe said quickly. "Jordan just arrived at the clinic." "Get me something concrete, Rivera. Not just speculation." Zoe ended the call and grabbed her camera, snapping several photos as Jordan entered the clinic. Even in disguise, his tall frame and distinctive walk were unmistakable. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Medical records. Security breach. Not what you think. Be careful who you trust." Zoe stared at the message. Was it from one of the fired employees? Someone inside Jordan's remaining inner circle? Or someone trying to throw her off track? Meanwhile, at Jordan's mansion in Florida, Sandra Miller was monitoring the media coverage. "It's not good, Michael," she reported. "The story is everywhere. Former employees are giving interviews. Your brand partners are getting nervous. Nike's stock dropped 3% this morning." Michael seemed unmoved, staring out at the ocean through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Your foundation board is asking questions too," Sandra continued. "The charity gala next month. Cancel it," Michael said. "It's your biggest fundraiser of the year. You can't just—" "I said cancel it." His tone left no room for argument. Sandra's phone buzzed. She checked the message, and her expression changed. The security team found something on James Wilson's company laptop. For the first time, Michael turned around. His interest clearly piqued. What did they find? Encrypted emails to an external account. Large file transfers last week. They're still working on accessing the content. "Jimmy?" Michael's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "You're sure?" Sandra nodded. His laptop, his login credentials. The timing matches the security breaches. Michael closed his eyes briefly. Jimmy Wilson had been his friend since childhood. The one person he'd trusted longer than anyone. The person who knew all his secrets. "Where is he now?" Michael asked. "He left for Charlotte an hour ago. Said he needed to pick up some things from the office." Michael picked up his phone and dialed Victor Ramirez. "Jimmy's the leak. Find him. Now!" Across the country, millions of people were still trying to understand why Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time and one of the most successful businessmen in sports, would fire his entire staff overnight. They didn't know what was really at stake. They didn't know that the man who had once said, "I can accept failure, but I can't accept not trying," was now facing his greatest challenge off the court. And they didn't know that Jimmy Wilson, Michael Jordan's oldest friend, might be the key to the whole mystery. Zoe Rivera had been a sports reporter for 8 years. She had covered Super Bowls, World Series, and Olympic Games. But this story about Michael Jordan felt different, more personal, more important. 2 weeks after the mass firing, Zoe sat in her small apartment in New York, surrounded by notes, printouts, and coffee cups. Her walls were covered with photos, timelines, and sticky notes, all connected to Michael Jordan's midnight decision. "What am I missing?" she muttered to herself, studying the timeline she had created. September 15th. Jordan makes his first visit to the Longevity Medical Institute in Phoenix. September 28th. Second visit to the clinic. October 3rd. Jordan cancels 3 business meetings with no explanation. October 10th. Third visit to the clinic. October 12th. Security team at Jordan headquarters begins internal investigation. October 17th. Fourth visit to the clinic, this time with James Wilson. October 20th. Jordan meets with unknown consultants at headquarters. October 21st. Fifth visit to the clinic with both Wilson and lawyer Sandra Miller. October 23rd. Jordan fires entire staff at 11:42 p.m. via text message. Something happened in that 6-week period. Something that made Michael Jordan, known for his loyalty and strategic thinking, take the most drastic action of his business career. Zoe's editor had given her a month to dig into this story. 2 weeks had passed, and while she had gathered lots of information, she still didn't have the answer to the most important question. Why? Her phone rang. The caller ID showed Ben Morris. The former equipment manager had been hesitant to talk at first, but after a week of gentle persistence from Zoe, he had agreed to meet. "Mr. Morris, thank you for calling back." "Call me Ben," he said. His voice sounded tired. "I've been thinking about what you asked, about Michael's behavior before the firing. Did you notice anything unusual?" Zoe asked, grabbing her notebook. "Not at first. But looking back, he canceled a shoe design meeting in early October. Never happened before. Michael never misses those meetings. He's particular about his shoes. Always has been." Zoe made a note. "This was around October 3rd? That sounds right. And there was something else. A week before the firing, I saw him with a group of men I didn't recognize. Not basketball people, not business people either. Can you describe them? Serious types, short haircuts. The way they stood, the way they scanned the room. Reminded me of military or federal agents." Zoe's pulse quickened. This matched what Darnell Washington had mentioned about consultants in the building before the firing. "One more thing," Ben added. "Michael's father's birthday was last week, October 31st. Every year Michael visits his father's grave. But this year, he didn't go. Sent flowers instead. First time that's happened since his father died." After thanking Ben and ending the call, Zoe added these new details to her timeline. James Jordan, Michael's father, had been murdered in July 1993, a tragedy that had profoundly affected Michael and contributed to his first retirement from basketball. Her next call was to Sophia Patel, the former marketing director. Unlike Ben, Sophia had been eager to talk. "I've been doing some digging of my own," Sophia said when she answered. "About that email I received about checking the financial reports." "Did you find anything?" Zoe asked. "Not in the regular reports, but I remembered something, Last year, Michael started a new charitable foundation separate from his main one. It's called the J.J. Hart Foundation. J.J.? James Jordan, Michael's father. The foundation funds research into cardiomyopathy. Zoe wrote it down. What's cardiomyopathy? It's a heart condition. I looked it up. It makes the heart muscle harder to pump blood. Can lead to heart failure if untreated. Zoe felt a chill. Did Michael's father have this condition? I don't know for sure, but it would explain the foundation, focus, and what? The Longevity Medical Institute in Phoenix? They specialize in advanced treatments for heart conditions, including cardiomyopathy. After the call, Zoe searched for information about the J.J. Hart Foundation. It had been established just 10 months ago with a $10 million donation from Michael Jordan. Its website was minimal, focused on funding research for early detection and treatment of cardiomyopathy. Next, Zoe called Marcus Chen, the data analyst who had worked closely with Darnell Washington in the finance department. "I've been thinking about those financial reports," Marcus said. "There were some unusual transfers in the last quarter. Money moving between accounts more than normal." "What kind of amounts?" Zoe asked. "Large, 7 figures, going to offshore accounts, then coming back through different channels. Money laundering? I wouldn't go that far, but definitely unusual for Jordan's usually straightforward finances." Zoe thanked him and added this information to her growing web of connections. The picture was becoming clearer, but crucial pieces were still missing. Her next move was bold, perhaps too bold. She called the Longevity Medical Institute directly. "Hello, this is Sandra Miller, legal counsel for Mr. Michael Jordan," she said, using her most professional voice. "I need to confirm Mr. Jordan's appointment for next week." The receptionist hesitated. "I'm sorry, but we can't discuss patient information over the phone without verification." "Of course," Zoe said smoothly. "Mr. Jordan values his privacy highly. Could you at least confirm which doctor he's seeing? Is it still Dr. Reynolds?" Another pause. "Yes, Mr. Jordan's appointments are with Dr. Reynolds, but I'll need proper authorization before discussing anything further." Zoe thanked her and hung up, satisfied with this small confirmation. Dr. Reynolds. A quick internet search revealed that Dr. Andrew Reynolds was a leading cardiologist specializing in genetic heart conditions. The pieces were starting to fit together, forming a picture that made Zoe's heart race with journalistic excitement. But she needed more. She needed to talk to someone in Jordan's inner circle. Victor Ramirez was impossible to reach. Sandra Miller refused all calls. That left Jimmy Wilson, Michael's childhood friend, the man whose laptop had allegedly been used to leak information. Finding Jimmy proved surprisingly easy. According to her sources, he had been staying at his lake house near Wilmington, North Carolina, his and Michael's hometown. Zoe booked a flight to Wilmington for the next morning. Before packing, she added one more connection to her wall of evidence: a string between J.J. Hart Foundation, Dr. Reynolds, and cardiomyopathy. Was Michael Jordan sick? Did he have the same heart condition that his father had suffered from? And if so, what did that have to do with firing his entire staff? The next morning, as her plane descended toward Wilmington, Zoe reviewed her notes. According to her sources, Michael Jordan had not been seen in public since his last visit to the clinic. His private jet had made 2 trips between Florida and Chicago, but none to Phoenix in the last week. Jimmy Wilson's lake house was on a quiet cove hidden by tall pine trees. Zoe parked her rental car a quarter-mile away and walked, not wanting to alert him to her presence. As she approached, she noticed something strange. No lights were on despite the overcast day, and no cars were in the driveway. She rang the doorbell. No answer. She tried calling Jimmy's cell phone, which went straight to voicemail. Looking through a window, she could see the house was empty. No furniture, no personal items. Jimmy Wilson had vanished. As she walked back to her car, Zoe's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Looking for Jimmy? So is Jordan. Be at Riverside Park, West Bench, 3 p.m. if you want the truth. Zoe checked her watch. It was 2:15 p.m. She had 45 minutes to decide if she would meet this mysterious source. It could be a trap. It could be nothing. Or it could be the key to the biggest story of her career. The truth about why Michael Jordan fired his entire staff overnight. While Zoe Rivera pursued her investigation, the former employees of Jordan's business empire were facing the harsh reality of sudden unemployment. For them, this wasn't just a fascinating mystery. It was their lives turned upside down. Marcus Chen sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by bills. Mortgage payment due in a week, car payment, health insurance, his twins' preschool tuition. Any luck today? His wife May asked gently, placing a cup of coffee in front of him. Marcus shook his head. 2 more rejections. Everyone wants to talk about why Jordan fired me, not about my actual skills. 6 months ago, Marcus had convinced May to move from Seattle to Charlotte for his dream job as a data analyst with Jordan's company. They had bought a house, enrolled the twins in a good preschool, and started building a life. Now, with a mass firing on his resume, finding a new position was proving difficult. We could always move back to Seattle, May suggested. My parents would help until we get back on our feet. Marcus nodded, but didn't respond. Moving across the country had been hard enough the first time. Doing it again, now with the shadow of failure hanging over them, felt like giving up. His phone buzzed with a text from Sophia Patel. Meeting at Carlos's Cafe at 2. Few of us getting together. Come if you can. Across town, Tanya Williams, Jordan's former personal assistant, was cleaning out her closet. 8 years of working. For a billionaire had left her with a wardrobe of designer suits and dresses, clothes bought for charity galas, product launches, and VIP events. She wouldn't need them for her job interview at a local insurance company tomorrow. Tanya had devoted her entire adult life to Michael Jordan's schedule, needs, and secrets. She had missed her sister's wedding because Jordan needed her on a business trip to China. She had postponed dates, canceled vacations, and worked through holidays. Her reward? A text message firing and 2 weeks severance pay. The worst part wasn't the job loss, it was the feeling of betrayal. Just a week before the firing, Jordan had thanked her for always having his back. She had believed him. She had trusted him. Her phone rang. It was Ben Morris, the equipment manager. "You, heading to Carlos's later?" he asked. "I don't know, Ben. What's the point? More complaining about Michael? More theories about why he did it? It's not about Michael. It's about us. We need each other right now." After hanging up, Tanya stared at her reflection in the mirror. 8 years of loyalty reduced to nothing in a single moment. She picked up her phone and texted Ben back. "I'll be there." At 63, Ben Morris was facing a different kind of challenge. After 30 years with Michael Jordan, who would hire him now? Too young to retire, too old to start over. Ben sat in his small apartment, holding the framed photo from the flu game that had once hung in his office. That night in Utah, he had seen the real Michael Jordan, sick, exhausted, but refusing to give up. It was the Michael Jordan that Ben had admired for 3 decades. The man who had fired everyone by text message, Ben didn't know who that was. His phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. "Hello? Mr. Morris? This is Zoe Rivera. I need to ask you about Jimmy Wilson." Ben hesitated. He had already told the reporter what he knew. "What about him?" "Did he? You ever notice anything unusual about his relationship with Michael? Any tension? Any arguments?" "Not really. They've been friends forever." Jimmy was one of the few people who knew Michael before the fame. Treated him normal, you know? Michael, like that. What about professionally? Did Jimmy have access to sensitive information? Financial records? Medical data? Ben thought about it. Jimmy wasn't an official employee, but he was always around, had access to everything. Michael trusted him completely. After ending the call, Ben checked his watch. Almost time for the meetup at Carlos's cafe. He wondered how many former colleagues would show up. How many were still in Charlotte, still looking for answers, still trying to make sense of that midnight text message. At Carlos's cafe, a small coffee shop 3 blocks from Jordan headquarters, familiar faces began to gather around 2 p.m. Marcus arrived first, saving a large table. Tanya came next, then Ben. Sophia Patel brought Darnell Washington, the former CFO, who had been quiet since the firing. A few others trickled in. Alex from IT, Jessica from HR, Roberto from design. "Anyone heard anything new?" Marcus asked, once they were all seated with coffee and sandwiches. "I got the extended severance," Tanya said. 4 weeks instead of 2. Showed up in my account yesterday. "Anyone else?" Everyone nodded. A small gesture from Jordan, but it didn't answer the bigger question. "I had a job interview at Nike yesterday," Sophia said. First question they asked, "Why did Jordan fire everyone?" Like I'm supposed to know. "Same with me at Under Armour," Roberto nodded. "They're all curious, but nobody's eager to hire the people Jordan dumped." Darnell, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "I've been thinking about the security breaches. The week before the firing, I noticed unusual access to some of our financial servers. Reported it to Victor. Next thing I know, we're all fired." "What kind of breach?" Marcus asked. "Someone accessing private financial data. Records of Jordan's personal accounts, not company finances." "And medical records," Alex from IT added. "Someone was in the secured server where we kept Jordan's personal medical information. I traced the breach, but couldn't identify the source. Before the text." The group fell silent, processing this information. "So Michael fires everyone because of a security breach?" Tanya finally asked. "That's extreme, even for him." "Unless," Ben said slowly, "he didn't know who to trust. If someone inside was leaking his private information, maybe he felt he had no choice but to cut everyone out and start fresh." They all considered this possibility. It made a certain kind of sense, given Michael Jordan's well-known protective nature about his privacy. "But why not just fire the guilty person when they found them?" Sophia asked. Nobody had an answer to that question. Not yet. As the former employees shared stories and supported each other through the personal toll of their sudden job loss, none of them knew that at that exact moment, Zoe Rivera was sitting on a park bench across town, about to meet someone who claimed to know the real reason behind Michael Jordan's midnight decision. Riverside Park was quiet for a Thursday afternoon. A few mothers with strollers, an old man feeding pigeons, a couple of teenagers skateboarding by the river. Zoe checked her watch. 3:05 p.m. She scanned the area, wondering if she had made a mistake coming here. "Ms. Rivera," the voice came from behind her. Zoe turned to see a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and glasses. She wore a plain blue jacket and jeans, nothing that would make her stand out in a crowd. "I'm Zoe Rivera," she confirmed. "And you are?" The woman sat down on the bench, keeping some distance between them. "My name isn't important. What matters is what I know." "And what do you know?" "I worked in IT security at Jordan's company for 11 years. I was part of the team investigating the security breach before the firing." Zoe tried to hide her excitement. This could be the break she needed. "What did you find?" The woman looked around carefully before continuing. 3 weeks before the firing, we detected unusual access patterns in our most secure servers. Someone was accessing Michael Jordan's private files." "What kind of files?" "Financial records, medical history, travel schedules, personal correspondence, all the sensitive information we were paid to protect." Zoe took out her notebook. "And you identified the source?" "We traced it to multiple user accounts. At first, we thought it was 5 or 6 different people. But then we noticed a pattern. All the access happened when those employees were not at their computers, during lunch breaks, after hours, when they were in meetings. Someone was using their credentials without their knowledge," Zoe concluded. The woman nodded. "Exactly. Someone with high-level access who could move around the building without raising suspicion. Someone trusted." "James Wilson," Zoe said, recalling what she had learned about the suspicious activity on Jimmy's laptop. The woman's expression confirmed it. "We had narrowed it down to 3 possibilities when the firing happened. Wilson was one of them. But we hadn't presented our findings to Jordan yet. So why fire everyone?" "That's where it gets complicated." The woman reached into her jacket and pulled out a small USB drive. "This contains copies of some of the files that were accessed. I kept them as insurance, in case things went bad. Now I'm giving them to you." Zoe hesitated before taking the drive. "Why me? Why now?" "Because the story being told isn't the whole truth. And because I think Michael Jordan is in trouble." Before Zoe could ask more questions, the woman stood up. "Be careful who you trust, Ms. Rivera. Not everyone in this story is who they appear to be." With that, she walked away, disappearing down a path lined with oak trees. Back in her hotel room, Zoe plugged the USB drive into her laptop. It contained dozens of files organized into folders. She clicked on one labeled Medical and found copies of Jordan's recent test results and doctor's notes from the Longevity Medical Institute. As she read through them, her heart sank. The reports confirmed her suspicion. Michael Jordan had been diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the same condition that had affected his father. The doctors were concerned about an accelerated progression of the disease and had recommended aggressive treatment protocols. Another folder labeled Financial contained records of large transfers to offshore accounts, just as Marcus Chen had mentioned. But these records showed something more concerning. The money wasn't just moving between Jordan's accounts. It was being systematically diverted to accounts belonging to a company called Pinnacle Health Innovations. Zoe searched for information about Pinnacle and found it was a private research firm specializing in experimental medical treatments not approved by the FDA for use in the United States. The picture was becoming clearer, but key pieces were still missing. Why fire everyone? How did Jimmy Wilson fit into all this? A third folder labeled Communications contained copies of emails and text messages. Most were routine business correspondence, but one exchange caught Zoe's attention. It was between Jimmy Wilson and someone using an encrypted email address from jwilson@jordanenterprises.com to analyst2227securemail.net. Subject: Information. Request attached are the files you requested. Financial projections, medical records, travel schedule. This is the last batch. As agreed, I expect the final payment to be made to my Cayman account immediately. After this, We're done. The attached files had been deleted, but the email itself was damning. Jimmy Wilson, Michael Jordan's oldest friend, had been selling private information. But to whom? And why? Zoe closed her laptop and paced around the hotel room, trying to make sense of what she had discovered. Michael Jordan was facing a serious heart condition. Someone was accessing his private records. Money was moving to a company developing experimental treatments. And Jimmy Wilson appeared to be betraying his friend's trust. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Rivera, this is Victor Ramirez, head of security for Mr. Jordan. Zoe's pulse quickened. How did he get her number? Yes? I understand you met with a former member of our security team today, and that you've recently tried to contact Jimmy Wilson. I'm working on a story, Mr. Ramirez. That's my job. I'd like to meet with you tonight. There are things you need to understand about this situation. Against her better judgment, Zoe agreed to meet Victor at a restaurant near her hotel in 1 hour. After hanging up, she immediately called her editor in New York. If I don't call you by 9 p.m., something's wrong, she told him. I'm meeting Victor Ramirez, Jordan's security chief. I have evidence that Jordan is sick, cardiomyopathy, same heart condition his father had. And it looks like his friend Jimmy Wilson was selling his private information. Be careful, Rivera. This isn't just a sports story anymore. Before meeting Victor, Zoe made a copy of the USB drive and mailed it to her editor. Insurance, just in case this meeting wasn't what it seemed. At the restaurant, Victor Ramirez was already seated at a corner table when Zoe arrived. In his mid-50s, with military short hair and alert eyes, he projected calm authority. Thank you for coming, Ms. Rivera, he said, standing briefly as she sat down. I'm listening, Mr. Ramirez. Victor studied her for a moment before speaking. You've been investigating why Michael Jordan fired his entire staff. You've spoken to former employees. You've tracked Michael's visits to a medical clinic in Phoenix. And today, you received confidential files from a former security team member. Zoe didn't confirm or deny it. What's your point? My point is that you're getting close to the truth, but not close enough to understand the real stakes. Then explain it to me. Victor leaned forward. Michael Jordan is a very private man. Always has been. When we discovered someone was accessing his personal information, especially his medical records, he was furious. But when we found out that information was being sold to tabloids, he shook his head. Michael couldn't accept that betrayal. So he fired everyone? That's extreme. Sometimes you have to cut out everything to find the one bad thing, Victor said quietly. Michael didn't know who to trust, so he trusted no one. Zoe considered this explanation. It made a certain kind of sense, given Jordan's personality. But it still didn't explain everything. And Jimmy Wilson? Where is he now? Victor's expression darkened. That's what I need to discuss with you, Ms. Rivera. Jimmy Wilson is missing, and we have reason to believe he's in danger. Zoe stared at Victor, trying to read his face. Was this genuine concern, or an attempt to manipulate her? Missing how? She asked carefully. I went by his lake house today. It was empty. Looked like he moved out. He didn't move out. He disappeared 3 days ago, Victor said. He told Sandra he was going to Charlotte to pick up some things from the office. Never arrived. His car was found at a rest stop on Interstate 77. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. Have you filed a police report? Victor nodded. Of course. But this isn't a typical missing person case. Given what Jimmy was involved in. You mean selling Jordan's private information? Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. You know more than I expected. I'm good at my job, Zoe replied. So, who was Jimmy selling to? Tabloids? Competitors? Gamblers looking for health information? We don't know yet, Victor admitted, but I have a theory. He pulled out his phone and showed Zoe a photo. It showed Jimmy Wilson meeting with a man in a hotel lobby. The man's face wasn't clearly visible, but he wore an expensive suit. This was taken last month in Phoenix. The man Jimmy is meeting works for Pinnacle Health Innovations. Zoe recognized the name from the financial records. The company developing experimental medical treatments. Victor seemed surprised by her knowledge but continued. Yes, they specialize in treatments not approved in the U.S., specifically for certain heart conditions. Like hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, Zoe said. Victor was silent for a moment. You really have been thorough, he finally said. Yes, that's correct. Michael was diagnosed 4 months ago, the same condition his father had. And Pinnacle offered some kind of experimental treatment for a price, a very high price. Money wasn't the issue for Michael, but he was cautious, wanted to research them thoroughly before committing. That's when the information leaks started. Zoe was beginning to see the full picture. Someone at Pinnacle was using Jimmy to get Jordan's medical and financial information, to pressure him into paying for their treatment. Victor nodded. That's our theory. Jimmy was always financially careless. Gambling debts, bad investments. Michael bailed him out more than once over the years. So, what changed? Why did Jordan fire everyone if he knew Jimmy was the leak? Because he didn't know for certain, Victor explained. We had suspicions, but no proof. And Michael didn't want to believe it. Jimmy was like a brother to him. Been with him since they were kids in Wilmington. Zoe thought back to the timeline she had created. The 5th visit to the clinic in Phoenix. Jimmy went with Jordan. That's when he connected with Pinnacle? We think so, Victor confirmed. A week later, we found the first evidence of the information breach. 2 days after that, Michael made the decision to fire everyone. It still seems extreme, Zoe noted. Michael Jordan doesn't do anything halfway, Victor said with a hint of a smile. He wanted to smoke out the leak without tipping them off. If he had just confronted Jimmy or fired a few people, whoever was behind this might have covered their tracks. By creating chaos with the mass firing, he hoped to catch someone making a mistake. As Victor spoke, Zoe's phone buzzed with an email alert. It was from her researcher in New York. Pinnacle Health Innovations CEO, Dr. Robert Carver, former cardiologist, license revoked in 2021 for experimental procedures on patients without proper consent. Company based in Bermuda, operates clinics in Mexico and the Bahamas. Zoe showed the email to Victor. Is this who Jimmy was meeting with? Victor's expression confirmed it. Carver approached Michael after his diagnosis, claimed to have a revolutionary treatment that could reverse his condition. When Michael hesitated, they needed leverage. So they recruited Jimmy to get inside information, Zoe concluded. But now Jimmy's missing. You think Pinnacle is behind his disappearance? It's possible. Or Jimmy realized we were onto him and ran. Either way, finding him is now our priority. Zoe studied Victor, still not entirely sure she could trust him. Why tell me all this? What do you want from me? Your investigation has stirred things up. People are talking to you who won't talk to us. You might hear something that could help us find Jimmy. And what about my story? Am I supposed to just sit on this information about Jordan's health and the real reason behind the firing? Victor shook his head. Michael knows your story is coming. He'd prefer to control the narrative himself. He's agreed to give you an exclusive interview, the full story, on the record. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, a career-making, exclusive with Michael Jordan. But Zoe was a journalist, not a pawn in someone else's game. "I need to think about it," she said. "Don't think too long," Victor warned. "Jimmy's life may depend on how quickly we move." After their meeting, Zoe returned to her hotel room and spread all her notes across the bed. The pieces were finally coming together. Michael Jordan had been diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the same heart condition that contributed to his father's death. Pinnacle Health Innovations, led by a doctor with a revoked license, had approached Jordan with an experimental treatment. When Jordan hesitated, they recruited Jimmy Wilson to access private information. Jordan, suspecting a leak but not knowing who to trust, fired everyone to smoke out the culprit. Now Jimmy was missing, possibly in danger from the very people who had recruited him. It was a story about betrayal, health, desperation, and the lengths people would go to exploit a vulnerable moment in a powerful man's life. Zoe picked up her phone to call her editor when she noticed something she had overlooked before. In the financial records from the USB drive, there was a recurring transfer to a company called Wilmington Legacy Holdings. Every month for the past 3 years, $50,000 had been transferred from one of Jordan's accounts to this company. A quick search revealed that Wilmington Legacy Holdings was registered to James Wilson. Jimmy had been receiving regular payments from Jordan for years. But why? What was the money for? Zoe called Ben Morris, hoping the longtime equipment manager might have insight into the relationship between Jordan and Jimmy. "Mr. Morris, what do you know about Wilmington Legacy Holdings? It's a company owned by Jimmy Wilson." Ben was quiet for a moment. "I've heard the name. I think it has something to do with Michael's father." "His father? How?" "You know James Jordan was murdered in 1993, right? It hit Michael hard. After that, he became even more protective of his privacy, especially anything to do with his family. I don't know specifics, but Jimmy helped handle some private family matters for Michael after that. Always very hush-hush." After thanking Ben, Zoe added this new information to her notes. There was more to the relationship between Michael Jordan and Jimmy Wilson than friendship. There were financial ties, family connections, and secrets that went back decades. And somewhere in those secrets might be the key to finding Jimmy before it was too late. 3 months after the midnight firing that shocked the business world, Michael Jordan made his first public appearance. The setting was a charity gala in Chicago, benefiting the James Jordan Foundation for Heart Health, a new organization combining Jordan's previous heart research funding into one public foundation. The ballroom of the Chicago Hilton was filled with celebrities, athletes, business leaders, and media. Security was tight, with Victor Ramirez personally overseeing the arrangements. Reporters had been promised a statement from Jordan, his first since the mass firing. Zoe Rivera had a front row seat. Her investigation had been put on hold at the request of the FBI, who had opened their own inquiry into Pinnacle Health Innovations and the disappearance of Jimmy Wilson. In exchange for her cooperation, Jordan's team had promised her exclusive access when the time was right. A hush fell over the crowd as Michael Jordan stepped onto the stage. He looked thinner than in recent photos, but healthy and composed in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. "Good evening," he began, his deep voice filling the room. 3 months ago, I made a decision that affected many people's lives. I fired my entire staff overnight, with little explanation. Tonight, I want to address that decision. The room was completely silent, hundreds of people holding their breath. I acted to protect my privacy and security after discovering a serious breach of trust within my organization. It was an extreme step, one that I now recognize caused unnecessary pain to many loyal employees. Jordan paused, taking a sip of water. Today, I'm announcing the launch of Jordan Enterprises, a new company that will carry forward the business vision I've developed over my career. And I'm pleased to share that many of the employees affected by my previous decision have been invited to join this new venture. Murmurs spread through the audience. In the crowd, Zoe spotted familiar faces: Tanya Williams, Ben Morris, Sophia Patel, Darnell Washington. Former employees now apparently rehired. To those who have accepted my offer to return, Jordan continued, thank you for your understanding and forgiveness. To those who have moved on to new opportunities, I wish you nothing but success. He didn't mention Jimmy Wilson. He didn't explain why he had fired everyone in the first place, but there was something in his voice, a hint of the emotion behind the carefully worded statement. After the speech, at the reception, Zoe approached Tanya Williams, Jordan's rehired personal assistant. Congratulations on returning to work, Zoe said. How does it feel? Tanya smiled, but her eyes remained cautious. It's good. Different, but good. The new company structure is more compartmentalized. Meaning? Meaning everyone has very specific access now. No one sees the whole picture except Michael and a few top executives. And everyone who came back had to sign new confidentiality agreements, added Darnell Washington, joining their conversation. Much stricter than before. Was there any explanation about why you were all fired? Zoe asked. Darnell and Tanya exchanged glances. Not specifically, Darnell said. Just what Michael said in his speech. A security breach. A breach of trust. And you're okay with that? No detailed explanation after everything you went through? Tanya shrugged. The severance was generous. The return offer even more so. And she hesitated. And what? Michael apologized to each of us personally, Tanya said quietly. I've worked for him for 8 years. I've never heard him apologize like that before. Across the room, Jordan was speaking with a group of doctors from the Mayo Clinic. He looked energetic, engaged, not like someone suffering from a serious heart condition. Had the experimental treatment worked? Or had the diagnosis been wrong? Sophia Patel approached, elegant in a black dress. Ms. Rivera, I hear you've been working with the FBI on finding Jimmy. I've shared what I know, Zoe said carefully. Any news on his whereabouts? Sophia shook her head. Nothing official, but there are rumors. What kind of rumors? That he's in witness protection. That he's working with authorities to bring down Pinnacle. Before Zoe could ask more questions, Victor Ramirez appeared at her side. Ms. Rivera, Michael would like a word. With you? In private. Victor led her to a small conference room adjacent to the ballroom. Michael Jordan was waiting, looking out the window at the Chicago skyline. Thank you for your patience, Ms. Rivera, he said without turning around. I understand you've been sitting on quite a story. I'm a journalist, Mr. Jordan. It's my job to find the truth. Now he turned to face her. And what truth have you found? That you were diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the same heart condition that affected your father. That Pinnacle Health Innovations offered an experimental treatment. That Jimmy Wilson was selling your private information, possibly to Pinnacle. And that you fired everyone to smoke out the leak. Jordan's expression remained neutral. Impressive research. Is Jimmy alive, Mr. Jordan? I believe so, Jordan said after a pause. The FBI has reason to think he's in Mexico, possibly under duress. And your health? The treatment? That's not part of our discussion tonight, Jordan said firmly. I've agreed to give you an exclusive about the company reorganization. My health remains private. Zoe nodded, accepting the boundary. One more question. The The monthly payments to Wilmington Legacy Holdings, Jimmy's company. What were they for? For the first time, Jordan's composed facade cracked slightly. That's also private. Family business. It might help find Jimmy, Zoe pressed. Jordan studied her for a long moment. You'll get your exclusive, Ms. Rivera, but some secrets stay secret, even from determined reporters. As Zoe left the conference room, she noticed something she had missed before. On a side table sat a framed photo of a young Michael Jordan with his father, James. And in the background, barely visible but unmistakable, was a teenage Jimmy Wilson. The three of them, connected since childhood. A connection that somehow led to monthly payments, security breaches, a mass firing, and a disappearance. The story wasn't over yet. 2 weeks after the Chicago Charity Gala, Zoe Rivera received a phone call at 3 a.m. The screen showed unknown number. Hello? She answered groggily. Ms. Rivera? This is Agent Daniels, FBI. We found Jimmy Wilson. Suddenly wide awake, Zoe sat up in bed. Is he alive? Yes. He was being held at a private clinic in Cancun. Mexican authorities raided the EDU facility an hour ago. We're bringing him back to the U.S. now. Was it Pinnacle, Dr. Carver? I can't share details of an ongoing investigation, but Mr. Jordan asked that you be notified. He's agreed to the interview you've been waiting for. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., his residence in Jupiter. The call ended before Zoe could ask more questions. She immediately booked a flight to Florida, her mind racing with possibilities. After 3 months of waiting, she was finally going to get the full story. Michael Jordan's Florida estate was a fortress of privacy, surrounded by high walls and security gates. Victor Ramirez met Zoe at the entrance and escorted her through lush gardens to a pool house converted into a comfortable meeting space. Jordan was waiting, dressed casually in jeans and a golf shirt. He looked relaxed, healthier than at the Chicago event. Thank you for coming, Ms. Rivera, he said, gesturing to a chair. I understand Jimmy arrived back in the U.S. this morning? That's what I was told, Zoe replied. How is he? Shaken, but unharmed. He's with federal agents now, giving his statement. Jordan's expression was unreadable. Before we begin, I want to be clear about something. I've agreed to tell you the full story, but parts of it remain off the record. Family matters stay private. Are we clear? Zoe nodded. I understand. Good. Jordan settled back in his chair. I was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy in July, the same condition my father had before his murder in 1993. It's genetic, often undiagnosed until it's too late. Is it treatable? Zoe asked. There are medications, procedures. My doctors at Mayo were optimistic but cautious. Then, Pinnacle approached me with claims of a breakthrough treatment, stem cell therapy combined with genetic modification. Not approved in the US, but available at their clinics in Mexico and the Bahamas. For a price, Zoe added. Jordan nodded. $5 million. Money wasn't the issue. I wanted to research them thoroughly first. That's when strange things started happening. Information about my condition was leaked to certain tabloids. My financial advisors received calls about investment opportunities that seemed to know details about my accounts. And you suspected a leak inside your organization? Victor identified unusual access patterns in our servers. Someone was gathering information, medical records, financial data, travel schedules, but we couldn't pinpoint who. Until you discovered it was Jimmy, Zoe said. Jordan's jaw tightened slightly. Jimmy and I have known each other since we were kids in Wilmington. When my father was killed, Jimmy helped with family matters, private matters. That's what the monthly payments were for. Wilmington Legacy Holdings, Zoe said. Jordan nodded, but didn't elaborate. This was clearly part of what he considered off the record. When the evidence pointed to Jimmy, I couldn't believe it, Jordan continued. I needed to be certain, but I also needed to act quickly to stop the leaks. So you fired everyone. A drastic move, I admit, but effective. By creating chaos, I was able to watch for unusual reactions. Meanwhile, Victor's team could investigate without interference. And you found proof it was Jimmy? Jordan's expression darkened. Emails on his laptop, money transfers to offshore accounts. It was undeniable. When I confronted him, he disappeared. I assumed he was running from me, but now we know Pinnacle took him. Why would they kidnap him? Zoe asked. Leverage. Jimmy knew things about me that no one else knew. Family, secrets, medical history, financial details. Pinnacle thought they could use him to pressure me into their treatment program and investment scheme. Zoe thought back to the timeline she had created months ago. The FBI raid on Pinnacle's clinic. Was that because of Jimmy's disappearance? Or something else? Both, Jordan said. When Jimmy vanished, we contacted the FBI. Their investigation uncovered that Pinnacle had been running a sophisticated scheme targeting wealthy patients with certain genetic conditions, experimental treatments of questionable value combined with financial fraud, and Dr. Carver in custody, along with several associates. The charges include kidnapping, fraud, practicing medicine without a license, and illegal human experimentation. What about the employees you fired? You've rehired many of them. Jordan nodded. With proper vetting and enhanced security protocols. The severance packages were generous, and those who returned received signing bonuses. I made a point of apologizing to each personally. And Jimmy? Zoe asked. What happens with him now? Jordan was quiet for a moment. Jimmy made serious mistakes. Broke my trust. But he was also a victim in this. Pinnacle exploited his financial troubles, his gambling debts, used him to get to me. Now he's cooperating with the authorities in exchange for immunity. Will you forgive him? It was the most personal question Zoe had asked, and she wasn't sure Jordan would answer. He stared out the window for a long moment before responding. I'm working on it, he said finally. 30 years of friendship doesn't disappear overnight, but trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. As their interview concluded, Zoe had one last question. Your health condition, how are you managing it? I'm following my doctor's recommendations at Mayo. Medication, lifestyle changes, monitoring. The condition is serious, but manageable. Jordan's tone made it clear this was all he would say on the matter. Before Zoe left, Jordan handed her a folder. This contains financial records, email evidence, and FBI statements about Pinnacle's operation. Everything you need to complete your story. The only things I ask to remain private are the details about my family and the specific nature of Jimmy's long-standing arrangement with me. 2 weeks later, Zoe's exclusive story was published in Sports Illustrated. Michael Jordan's Midnight Decision. The real story behind the mass firing became the magazine's most read article of the year, later winning a prestigious journalism award. The story revealed how Jordan had taken extreme measures to protect his privacy and health information. From a predatory medical company, how a childhood friend had betrayed his trust. How the man known for his competitive fire had made a difficult decision to cut out everything to find the one bad thing. What the story didn't reveal, respecting Jordan's request for privacy, were the specific family matters that Jimmy Wilson had helped manage for decades. The true nature of Wilmington Legacy Holdings remained a secret between the two men. 6 months after the article was published, at the opening of a new cardiac research center funded by the James Jordan Foundation, Michael Jordan made a surprise announcement. Standing at the podium, he introduced the center's new community outreach director, James "Jimmy" Wilson. Sometimes, as Jordan had once told Ben Morris before his final championship game, you have to be willing to lose everything to win what matters most. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the complex world of loyalty, betrayal, and difficult choices. Where are you listening from? Drop your location in the comments below. I love seeing how far these stories reach around the world. If you enjoyed this content, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more intriguing stories like this one. I share new content regularly that dives into fascinating real-life situations with unexpected twists. Don't forget to share this video with friends and family who might enjoy it too. Spreading these stories helps build awareness and reminds us all of the complex challenges people face, even those we think we know well. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.